Hey kids, this is Aaron from the podcast That Wouldn't Die, and Kevin and I use Zencastr. You think you're better than us, that you're using something else? You're wrong. Zencastr's the place to be. Who are you to deny it?
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code DIEHARD and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time for you to share your story.
Only a fool will give up a chance for a 30% discount.
There's a situation. Serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted.
She is my everything, and those savages have got her. God knows what they're doing to her, and every second that we delay.
You know who did this? You don't have a name. How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast That Wouldn't Die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hello there.
Who seems to be distracted at the moment. Sweet
I was going to reach
Jesus.
to put on some lipstick, but it's too far away with my cat chewed up headphones, so
Such as
I'll
life.
just go natural. I'll have our sister-in-law just tattoo lips on me next time I see her.
So you're saying that podcasting is not as glamorous as one would think. Is that what you're saying?
You know, I try to keep some of the secrets, you know.
The secrets, 100%. Oh, sweet Jesus. This week, we're discussing the Western horror new classic, although it's like 10 years old, Bone Tomahawk, starring Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox. Who else? Richard Jenkins is in this thing. And if you're looking close, Michael Paré from Eddie and the Cruisers and Sean Young are also in this, if you're looking close.
I was not looking close. Sean Young, huh? I haven't seen her since the fucking Blade Runner. Who is she in this?
There's one scene where after
She's
everyone's
not
been
one
abducted.
of the pregnant ladies with no
No.
arms or legs or eyes.
Yes, she is. She's one of the freaks in the,
Is
in the
that
cave.
Michael Paré?
That was Michael Paré. No, there's a scene after everyone's abducted and they all meet in like the bar the next morning to discuss what to do with it, and a bunch of randos walk in. Michael Paré and Sean Young were the randos. Now Sean Young is like the mayor's wife, who clearly is like in charge, and she says like, direct your questions directly to the mayor, if you will.
And he just keeps talking to her.
Right.
Oh my God.
100%.
Didn't realize that was her. Did you recognize her or did you Google this?
I recognized her. Michael Paré, I did not. So I don't even know who he is. It just said like a townsperson or something, Michael Paré. I mean,
He wasn't the mayor, all small and fidgety.
He was not the mayor, but it's fun because it's like, you think about Michael, who the hell knows who Michael Paré is except for me?
I don't know.
You know, go ahead.
I can see his youthful face, but I don't think I think she must be 70 now. Maybe he's the drunk.
He's 70 at least. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he was hot stuff for about 5 minutes in the 80s when he did Eddie and the Cruisers.
For sure. That was huge. Everybody my generation saw Eddie and the Cruiser because he had that kind of rebel without a cause, greaser hair kind of vibe. Grease is alive.
He was in that. He was in the Philadelphia Experiment, which is kind of a science fiction-y kind of thing where people travel through time.
Right.
And he was in a rock musical called Streets of Fire with Willem Dafoe and Diane Lane and Rick Moranis.
What was the song from Streets of Fire? What was the song?
There was the one big hit, which is one of my favorites.
Which was?
It was, oh my God, I Can Dream About You by Dan Hartman.
I can dream dream about you if
Yes,
I can't hold you tonight.
that's it.
And Eddie Cruisers had a big hit. I
Uh,
can dream. That's his ringtone. I can dream
that
about
that's a
you.
that's a banger though. I love
That's
I
a
Can Dream
banger.
About You.
I
Um,
don't think I've heard it since 1984. So
no, it's a sad situation. Anyway, each week on the podcast That Wouldn't Die, we discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the horror and sci-fi genre with a comedic twist. Aaron, how's it going? What's the latest?
I have had a headache for 2 weeks,
Oh shit.
including while I was at the Ohana Festival, learning that Eddie Vedder is 5'6" because now he's bite size. I didn't realize that, but his voice is still sassy. But it's this change in fucking weather. I don't know about where you live,
Mm.
but we often have air that is not suitable for humans. And we're going through that right now. So basically, I don't have a runny nose. My eyes do not itch, but I have this headache in my head that gets worse when I bend over. So I'm literally throwing every allergy medication at it, and Advil, and it's still by the end of the day, I must take to bed. It is freaking ridiculous. I even took a COVID test. I was getting ready for a meeting to start, and I just took it right there while I was waiting for
Just
people to show.
during
And as I'm taking notes in the meeting, I'm just watching it to see. I was like, no, not pregnant, not COVID.
Well, I mean, that will end the meeting quicker if that's what you're looking for. Let
It
me
was like,
swab my nostrils. Yeah,
yeah.
the
Damn it,
truth
I should
comes.
have taken that COVID late when I had it, but I was too paranoid. I knew if I took it when I didn't have COVID, for sure
Right,
I would have COVID the next week.
100%,
Sons
100%.
of sons of biscuits.
Sweet Jesus. So give us
Although the
your
test I took was
yes.
given out during COVID. Do you think it's passed by date?
You actually have to go on a website to see. Evidently, they said they're good for like an additional year than what the package says. But some of
Hmm.
ours we've had for 3 years. So when I got COVID back in August, we were just rolling the dice, hoping for the best. Yeah.
But it told you that you had COVID.
Well, I went
Oh,
someplace.
you went to a
I think I
place.
told you this. It was like I came back from the cruise and I had kind of a reoccurring kind of cough that wasn't going anywhere, but I felt basically fine. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, you know what? I am starting to feel like my throat is really kind of jacked. And I just went in there thinking they'd say, you know, we don't see anything, or
Shut the hell
what
up.
they usually say, right? I don't know. The tests are negative. Good luck.
Did you
Drink
take
some
some
honey.
Tylenol? Drink
Right.
plenty of fluids? Shut
Totally.
the F up?
In my fantasy, like Star Trek style, I will walk in the door. They scan me. Boo. Oh, here's the issue. Right?
Yes.
That's what I want. No, does not exist today. I'm sad to say, but yeah, had tested with COVID. Came home, felt like crap for a couple days. I kept trying to retest, but all the ones we had at home were all expired and blowing the dust off and the cobwebs, and like a bat flies out when you open it. So it was a whole thing.
Dude. Yeah. I'm pretty sure mine was like 5 years old. Do you think that's bad?
It's probably not good. I'll say
I mean, I
that.
just have this headache that gets worse when I bend over. When I had COVID, when I was in Europe, I was exhausted. And I am
Right.
tired, but I'm not that tired.
You're not COVID tired, is what you're saying.
I'm not COVID tired, and I'm not sleeping COVID. I could sleep for weeks. It was like I had mono all over again. I flew back from Europe when I had COVID. I was wearing my mask, people. I slept for all the way from Italy to Toronto. I took a nap waiting for my plane to change. Then I slept all the way from Toronto to Los Angeles, went to my hotel, and slept till 10 in the morning the next day.
I have to rewind this. Are you saying you went to sleep in the airport and were confident you
Yes.
wouldn't just miss your plane, your connecting
Well,
flight?
I was at my gate, and I was like snoozing. There was a lady hacking next to me, and I was not judging because I actually had COVID. I offered her a mint. She's like, "Really? It's asthma." I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah, okay.
I'm just telling you, you want to suck on this mint because everybody's eyeballing you." Meanwhile, the mole is sitting next to her.
you were suspect 0 or whatever.
It was
Can you
patient 0.
patient 0, not suspect 0. Give us your 30-second synopsis of Bone Tomahawk.
First of all, Kurt Russell is an American icon.
Absolutely.
That's the reason we're watching this. I said, "Oh, Kurt Russell's in this? All right." Bone Tomahawk is just a straight up Western. I don't even know why we're reviewing it because it's not a horror movie. It is just, I mean, is Unforgiven also a horror movie? Because I was very upset when what's his name died, Morgan Freeman. I found that very upsetting, and no one called that a horror movie. But
is this your 30-second synopsis? How dare you?
I'm working on it. So we see some people robbing some folks. They're trying to get away. They go into the forbidden Indian burial ground. One of them gets killed. They go off to town. Somebody gets doctored up. The native folks show up, kidnap the doctor, kidnap a flunky, and off they go to their cave dwelling retreat where hijinks ensue. And Kurt Russell and the dude from all the psychic movies go after him, even though he's got a peg leg and it's turning gangrene. Crawls up the mountain where Chaka and everybody live and managed to freaking
and the
kill
slee stacks.
anybody. And the slee stacks with his 3 bullets that are left. And basically, it's cowboys versus troglodytes, which troglodyte just means people who live in a cave.
Yep.
And they happen to be cannibals, and they have some genetic perforation in their neck so they can make weird sounds. So scary.
Shut your trap. How dare you?
It's a freaking cowboy movie. Not saying that it's not great. I enjoyed it, but it is not a horror movie.
Okay.
What makes it a horror movie?
Let me say this. I can understand why you would say that, and I'm not saying I entirely disagree. But let me just say that at its root, it is cowboys versus cannibals. Cowboys
versus Indians who just happen to be cannibals.
But
cannibals exist.
They do exist, but these are not. And there's a scene where they're back at what was the name of the town? Hope Floats. I don't remember. Where they go and they talk.
Is that what you said?
It was something like that. They talk to the professor, who's this Native American fellow, and they show him because they left like an arrow behind when they abducted the first 3 people, and he immediately recognizes it. Oh yes, they're from the Valley of the Starving Men, is what we call it in our language. He says, to your eyes, they appear as though Native American, even though they're not. They're nowhere the same. They're an entirely different thing, was kind of what he said. But to white eyes, that's what it looks like. And
your racist eyes.
To your goddamn racism. And when they appear, like when we first see them at the beginning, when the first people are attacking, they're like monsters. It's like a monster just appeared and is killing them. And they're killing, when they kill, it's like with such ferocity and suddenness that it makes it kind of scary. Now, I stipulate there's a good hour. The journey from Hopetown to the Valley of the Starving Men, it's pretty standard Western fare.
It's 90% of the movie.
Yes, I would say. I'm not disputing that. Watching it, I kind of go like, I kind of wish on the way there were some, attacks by the monsters. You know what I mean? To kind of mix it up. Now, I think there's.
They are not monsters.
Well,
they are very buff, I have to say.
They are They look like, but they don't really look like any kind of Native American people you've seen, because they're like pale
No,
skin
they're
or whatever,
painted.
or whatever.
No, they're
They're painted.
painted.
They're painted, but they have like tusks. Like the dude, like they clearly have like scarred themselves and like put shit in like their skin.
I want to think it's more like an African vibe because, like, they painted themselves,
Right.
and then they have like face pieces with tusks, and
Right.
it looks more like that kind of a vibe
Right. The
versus
self-mutilation.
what we've seen or what we know of Native Americans.
Correct. And I think they have this thing in their neck, which I took it as just another self-mutilation that they'd done to themselves that creates that kind of howling kind of noise. I don't think it was some genetic thing they were born with as a race.
Well, because the dude cut it out. He thought it was some piece of jewelry. So you think they just kind of opened up the windpipe so they could make that sound?
Right. I think they cut into themselves and then shoved a bone or some shit in there, is what I think. Because they have
bone he cut out had meat on it.
Well, it was. I'm sure it had kind of grown in there and kind of, I don't know.
See, I just thought it was a genetic thing.
We're kind of jumping the gun here. You had never even heard of this movie, is that correct?
Not till we were on another podcast and they were talking about it, but the name sounds scary.
I had heard about it and I had watched it, not knowing anything about it, because it seemed kind of cool. It's like, I'm always down for kind of a Western kind of vibe, kind of a lesser known. Like I watched a movie called Appaloosa with Ed Harris and Viggo Mortensen a couple weeks back. Another Western kind of things that you would expect, and I'm always down for that. So I popped this sucker in, and you're right. It's like mostly kind of a Western vibe, but with this kind of cool backdrop of this tribe. Basically, that makes it kind of scary.
And all the characters are interesting.
Yes, very much so. And what's interesting is even the language, the way they speak, seems like authentic. It seems like this was written.
Timothy Oliphant in Deadwood.
It seems like
kind of awkward English.
Right. It has
very
that kind
formal.
of a formal classic quality. And even like the raiders, the two like thieves who like kill people in their sleep and steal stuff, who are obviously like scumbags that like live out in the desert, also have very kind of refined English, the way they talk to each other. Like it in a way, it kind of sets that stage for what's going on. But
wasn't one of those dudes, what's his name?
It was David Arquette. It was David Arquette.
I was like, is that David Arquette?
I didn't even mention that. David Arquette and Sid Haig from Spider Baby are the two burglars.
I kept looking at Sid Haig because I kept saying, I know this dude.
Yes.
I know this dude.
The cast is really amazing.
Honestly, it was a really straight performance from Sid Haig.
It is. It is. It absolutely is.
It was great.
But what's funny is if you've ever talked to somebody about Bone Tomahawk, they always go like, and you know that one scene. And you don't even have to like elaborate the one scene they're talking about. Everybody goes, oh yeah. Because we'll get there. But it comes out of you are not prepared for the level of violence. And I mean, I don't know if I've seen that anywhere, frankly. And I watch Fulci. So that's what I'm talking about. So you'd never seen
it. If it was Fulci, then also would have been a bucket of blood thrown upon the people that are standing nearby.
Everybody would have been doused with gore, right? 100%. But yeah, I assume this was in theaters, but I have no idea if it was or wasn't.
Yeah,
I
have no idea.
It was like suddenly it popped up on my radar. And I watched it. I don't remember seeing ads for it or anything. Truly. So anyway, why don't we just jump right into the highlights?
Did it come out during COVID?
2015.
I don't even know when COVID. When was COVID? 2010?
2020 is when we really... it's COVID-19. It was 2019 is when it kicked
Well,
off.
that does make sense.
But we didn't a little bit. But we didn't have the lockdowns till 2020. Like early, it was like what was it, March or April or something like that. So this is way before that. So yeah, good times. Why don't we jump right into the highlights? Do you want to? I know neither one of us took notes because we were luxuriating, but
yeah, I wrote down Bone Tomahawk. That was all I wrote
I did
down
too.
because it's an all-star cast.
Yes,
and it really kind of sucks you in.
It does. It really does.
I didn't have time to criticize or anything. I was just okay. Let's go.
Well, and there, when I take notes, it's usually like to goof on something. Like, what the hell is this? And there really isn't anything to goof on. You know what I mean? So let's talk about briefly what's going on. So Sid Haig and David Arquette, who are in 5 minutes of this movie, basically set upon travelers who are camped out at night, murder them, and rob them, essentially.
Right.
And they're hearing like a posse on their tail, so they kind of run off and cross like clearly what's meant to be a Native American burial ground.
Right.
And upon that, Sid Haig
and they make this crazy sound that you're not sure what it is. This ghostly sound that they make.
Yeah.
You know they're coming.
Well, they even said it's like, oh, I'm sure it's just the wind. He's like, it's like the wind? Are you sure? No. Doesn't sound like the wind to me. So Sid Haig is killed. Smash cut to David Arquette has come to this town wearing dead man's clothes, buried like his ill-gotten gains outside of town, and now he's just having a drink.
But he was witnessed. The
yes.
Auxiliary deputy,
the backup deputy, Richard Jenkins,
came and told Kurt Russell, the sheriff, what he saw. So they decided to mosey over.
Right.
Check it out.
Absolutely. So because Kurt Russell's got kind of a temper to him, pretty standard. If you give him any sass, he's putting a bullet in your leg. So that's what happens. They've got him arrested. The real deputy's guarding him, but we're going to take care of him. So Patrick Wilson is a cowboy, like literally, like, he herds cattle and shit. And he's married to a lady who's
a doctor.
Clearly, I think at the time there was a doctor in town who was just a drunk, who's an alcoholic and couldn't be counted on. And for some reason, in which they did not explain, she also had medical skills.
Right.
So
she's the one they rely on.
100%.
So they sent a rider out to pick her up.
Right. Now, Patrick Wilson fell off the roof doing some shingling or some shit, and he has a broken leg. So he's kind of laid up. He wasn't able to go off and do wrangling and shit.
Cowboy stuff.
Doing cowboy shit. So
he's home being pissy.
Right. 100%. So that night, they're all the three people in the court, in the jail, which was the deputy, the wife, who's a doctor, and the prisoner, disappear. And a stable hand who hears noises in the stable is murdered by one of the creatures. Just pops out. Like, I'm going to call them creatures. They're obviously not monsters. They're obviously people, but they're creepy. They're creepy. Scary.
This is like our Appalachia stories. They're people or obviously away from society. They're not mixing with the outside. There's a level of inbreeding. There's not that many of them. No,
I think they said there's 12 like able-bodied dudes and like 2 kind of armless, legless, blind kind of women who are clearly just for giving birth. Like that's the only purpose that they serve in this thing. And they don't.
Some of the people who died look small, so like maybe they were kids.
Oh, maybe. It's hard to say. But when they talk about the Valley of the Starving Men, the professor basically tells them, because they're like, "Oh, you'll lead us?" He's like, "Hell no, I ain't doing that. Because if you go, you're gonna die, and it doesn't even matter how many there are, because any number of them would be enough to kill you all." Is basically what it is.
And the professor is a Native American gentleman who I swear I've seen in 1,000 things.
He's been in 1,000
but
things.
He's been in 1,000 things. And he's like, no, I ain't going with you.
Hell no.
I'll give you all the information you like, but hell no. Which was the right answer.
Which is the right answer. And I think I often think about this. Like back in the day, you could have a movie like Alan Quatermain visits the deepest, darkest reaches of uncharted Africa, where he meets tribes and things like that. Or you can have Zulu, right? Where it's like, here are the white people, in South Africa defending themselves against the tribes, essentially.
Are they defending themselves, or were they not the attackers?
That's Zulu's an interesting movie. We could talk about that. Yeah, but
right.
It was a true story. Basically, the British Army thought they were hot shit, rolled into South Africa to tame the Zulus.
Right.
Colonizing, and got their asses kicked. Got annihilated. And then the Zulus were like, we're not done. We're going to go take out Rorke's Drift, this area over here, where there's like, I don't know however many, like 100 of these British soldiers. And half of them are like injured. It's like an infirmary or something. So then it's like 10,000 Zulus coming down on 100 of these guys. And the movie of Zulu, which has Michael Caine in it, for example, is their heroic story of how they defended themselves against just wave after wave of these Zulus. Okay? The issue of these movies...
all while still drinking tea.
100%. As you might imagine, the issue with these movies is it often portrays the indigenous people of these regions as kind of... Savages. 100%. Where it's just like,
how dare they defend their own land?
Right.
Monsters.
Absolutely. They're often not as sensitive as we'd like them to be, which makes you wonder. It's like, can you tell these kind of stories where it's like, the explorer who's exploring the land? It's just like, how are you exploring a land that already has people in it? You know what I mean? Why is it special that you are like showing up 1,000 years after people have been living there and having, you know what I mean? Can you have those kind of stories anymore? So what's interesting about this is it makes a point by having the character of the professor go in there and say, yeah, they're savages. However, they're not, strictly speaking, Native Americans, right? They're something different than that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's true. These characters, the starving men, if you want to call them that, are monsters. There's nothing remotely human about their behavior as we understand it. Or maybe,
is that correct?
Or maybe, I mean,
maybe
that's a question. Go ahead.
We don't know enough about them.
Well, we know that they're eating people, right?
Well, people have eaten people through the history of time.
That's true.
It did seem like the only women there had their arms and legs chopped off and their eyes dug out so they couldn't leave.
Right.
So
now you could argue.
Who are we to judge other cultures?
This is what happens when you're a progressive, because you kind of tie yourself in knots. Well, we don't know how people taste. I mean, maybe we taste good.
I hear it's more like a pork. I don't know.
Long pork.
I mean, there are people who have lived to tell the tales. I say we make a pact, and like if you lose a limb or I lose a limb.
No, I'm not making this pact.
As long as it's not. Yes, we are. It's gonna be like a Wagyu situation. As long as it doesn't have like disease or it's funky or anything, why not like a little fillet with a little sauteed with a little butter? We should check it out.
I'm going to say hard pass on that. That sounds horrifying.
I'd be willing.
But one thing I will say about the starving men in this is that in all reality, they only go after David Arquette because he befouled their burial ground, clearly, right? And they only capture the rest of the gang when they breach the valley. right?
Right.
So maybe
they
that's
went into town to get Arquette, is what you're
right.
saying.
Correct. They went to get Arquette. Now they grabbed a couple other people and killed a few other randos along the way.
Well, they got hungry.
They got
So you're saying, well, it is indicating that no one has ever heard of this group
correct.
before.
Although
So
the
they
professor
are
knew all
keeping
about them and knew exactly where to find them.
The professor knew, but the other people, the white folk in town,
Correct.
never heard anything about it. So it's not like people coming by are getting menaced.
No, well, they did say it was like a 6-day journey on horseback, essentially. So it wasn't.
It's out of the way. It's
Right.
out of the way.
100%.
Well, if it's a 6-day journey, how did they get to David Arquette in like a day?
Well, we don't know how much time passed between the beginning where he's stumbling across the burial ground and when he shows up in Hope City.
I don't know. I say 2 days max.
2
2 days max.
Based upon what? The smash cut?
Yes.
Yeah, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Maybe they have a better way. Maybe they have ghost horses too. I don't know. Maybe they're riding the slee stacks in. I don't know.
Well, and they steal the horses, but you never see the horses again.
They didn't steal the horses.
They did.
Those other people stole the horses.
No, when they
The bandits.
No. Well, they brought horses with them, but the horses from the stable were gone.
Oh, you're right. So they rode back with
That's
the horses.
Michael Paré. Michael Paré was the guy who was angry that his horses were stolen. And Kurt Russell goes like, I'm going to smack you if you say one more word about your horses.
That's Michael Paré. You know who that looked like?
Who?
It looks like that guy who used to be Magic Mike.
Channing Tatum?
He looked like Channing Tatum.
You're being very charitable with the
well, because he was very kind of stocky.
He was stocky. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. But he's still 70 years old. So who's to say?
He did not look 70 years old. I'll give you that.
That was what it was. It all came to me in a bolt of lightning.
Boom. I was like, what? What does it all mean?
Now,
maybe they don't have a taste for horse. When I was in Italy, I did see horse for sale at the butcher shop. Big ribs.
Oh God. Anywho, but the starving men steal the horses, but you never. I think at one point they are able to follow the horse shoes, whatever the what am I trying to say? The prints. What is it? The footprints.
Yeah.
To find their way to where they needed to go, if I'm remembering correctly.
See, that's where I got confused. I thought the Spanish bandits took their horses and they were following their horses with the hopes of getting them back.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like they are evidently this is a lawless place. So multiple times.
Maybe the ghost people are just eating bad people.
Could be. They ate the deputy.
That's what happened to Butch
Sweet.
Cassidy. That's what happened to all the bank robbers, the hole in the wall gang.
Hop along Cassidy.
Gene Autry.
The whole gang. Absolutely. We didn't even talk about Matthew Fox playing the dandy brooder who's wearing a fancy hat and his mustache. You know who I'm talking about? You're giving me a strange look.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know who that actor is.
Matthew Fox was in Lost for like 5 years.
I never saw that.
He was in Party of Five back in the 90s. He was one of the brothers. Okay. He was on shows that were wildly successful for a long time.
In the 90s.
No, Lost was in the aughts. Good Lord.
Was it?
Yes.
I never saw it. It looked terrible.
from time to time, I'm reminded that just because, America is aware of certain actors does not mean Aaron is aware of certain actors. Anyway, I guess they established that he has killed 100 Native Americans in his day. And he was,
right.
And
he was like 120 or something ridiculous.
And they he said something along the lines of that his mother and his sister had been killed by Native Americans in his youth. And therefore that's what he does. But he doesn't seem to take a lot of pleasure in it, honestly. I mean, he just seemed very matter of fact when he described these sorts of things. Because the
Well,
professor
and
goes,
then
go ahead.
he killed the 2 Mexican guys who came up to the camp because he just figured they're either bad guys or they're lookout for bad guys. So they got tired of talking to him and just shot them both.
Shot him
Everybody was
dead.
like, what the hell?
Right. Well, he would hang up this kind of like chime around their camp, and he'd be like, if anything hits those chimes, just blast them. Blast them. It's either a wild animal or it's somebody who shouldn't be sneaking up on us in the dark anyway. So
Right.
boom. But I found it interesting that this character that was supposed to be established as this kind of a gunslinging badass is dispatched very quickly. Very quickly. Like, like he takes an arrow and then I think his hand gets chopped off or something. And then he's just sitting there. And he's like, oh, I'm too vain to survive as a cripple. Give me a stick of dynamite and I'll
and
take
he didn't live long enough to even
to
blow
do
the
anything.
dynamite up. He just sat there and went poof.
Right. That was it. He took a tomahawk to the forehead and that was the end of Brooder. So I wonder
Was that a bone tomahawk?
That was a bone, and that was the thing. Their weapons were all made out of bone. So the tomahawks, yes, were bone tomahawks. The titular
And they
bone.
were kind of ninja. Like they'd wear a bone on their forearm for whacking you. They had like armor. It was almost, like I said, it was almost this cross between like African and Asian armor. It's kind of it's higher level.
Well, it was funny considering there's only 12 of them. That you're right. Half the time it was like they were ninjas. Like they were swooping in and
quiet
just
as ghosts.
yes, 100%. And then frickin' Peg Leg Joe crawling around on all fours takes out like 9 of them by himself. How
With
did
his
that happen?
gangrenous broken leg, crawling through the dirt, saves the day.
He saves the
I hope
day.
he died of dysentery on the way back, just like the Oregon Trail game.
just like the Oregon Trail game. Which dysentery, I'm not a doctor. I'm not sure what the connection between dysentery and gangrene is, but who's to say?
He's going to get something because it is so unlikely that Mr. Wilson's going to survive when Mr. Gunslinger, who shoots at everyone with a dead eye, didn't make it.
Well, and maybe, I wonder if they're kind of making a statement. Maybe it was kind of like, here's this guy who's kind of presenting himself as this badass, and yet easily taken care of. Even when they're attacked in the night by bandits, right? He's about to be killed. And it's Patrick Wilson who saves him, who wakes up and blasts him. So
he's not so badass.
Right?
So did he really kill 120 natives?
Right. Is it all just for show? All just talk?
Yeah. Is it all a bunch of talk? Don't know.
Don't know. Unclear. So I guess it comes back to my question to you is, because they are basically set upon on 2 different occasions by Mexican bandits or whatever in the night. Does that, I mean, because they had to have some shit happen. So they had those kind of
yeah, Mexican bandits came, took all their horses,
yes,
effed them up. How are they ever supposed to make this journey, the incredible journey, if they can't even get it for that? How are they supposed to meet the troglodytes and surpass them?
Well, and I guess that jingle jangle jingle shit didn't work that well that night, right?
No, not enough jingle jangle.
Not enough jingle jangle jingle. So I don't know. It's hard to say what the purpose of that was. So that's an interesting question.
I thought it was weird. They're like, okay, so now we have to start sleeping during the day and walking at night, which is Desert 101. I mean, I remember being in school and that's what they tell you to do if you get lost in the desert. Sleep during the day, walk at night.
I mean, you can't like set somebody like a watch at night. I mean, what the you all have to go into deep REM sleep every goddamn night with monsters on the loose?
I mean, ridiculous. Yeah, they can't sneak up on you, but I guess can they sneak up at you when it's 12 noon? But it appears that they never did that because they seem to be walking during the day and during
Anyway,
the night.
yes, 100%. 100%. And Patrick Wilson's leg was hurtful when they it was because he's trying to walk on it with his one crazy crutch like he's Tiny Tim dragging his dead leg around
mountains and hills with his homemade bullshit. It's all getting funky as time progresses. There's no way. How are you getting in and on and off a horse with your broken leg? I mean, come on. At one point, they were going to cut it off.
Yes.
He's like, no.
He said, number one, you're not going to, I don't know what their plan was. We're going to cut your leg off right here and then just leave you here to slowly bleed it. What's the goal? What are we trying to do? We're going to
pack you full of opium, and that way you won't notice when the other people start eating you.
Correct.
You'll be like, what?
We'll bring your leg as a peace offering. Now, and now, luckily, Richard Jenkins also had a bit of medical experience. Half the people in town, Hope City, have some kind of medical background. And
by medicine, we mean opium.
Yes, they give him a spoonful of sugar and help the medicine go down. And he's like, I'll reset your leg. And he pulls like this hammer out of the medical bag. Again, I'm not a doctor. Is that how you set a broken leg? You just hit it with a hammer until it's back in place?
That sounds like you're breaking it in a different way.
Sweet Jesus.
I thought you yank it and set it. Not like you chisel. I like how they have a special silver hammer just for hammering people's legs.
You could have gotten a rock to do that. If all we're doing is just whacking it a few times. Sweet
We're
Jesus.
going to rub some extra dirt in it to keep the germs out.
Right. So my question to you is, should they have had more run-ins with the monsters along the way? Or is it
kind of builds the suspense? Well, they wanted you. It's like a little ensemble group. They want to get to know these folks and all of that. It's really more about, this movie's really more about that than, it's more about the journey than the destination.
Yes, very much so.
But when they arrive, there's some shit waiting.
The shit goes down. Because you're right. Homie, Bruder gets killed. Patrick Wilson was left behind because of his Jimmy leg. And old ass Richard Jenkins and Kurt Russell get their butts kicked and dragged up to the cave where they see the wife is still alive, the deputy is still alive for the moment, and they tell the story of David Arquette that he was eaten before, and in his rage told them all about how he had murdered scores of people and he deserved whatever he got. Right. So they're like, okay, so what's going to happen next? Almost immediately, the monsters pull the deputy, who we haven't seen since the beginning of the movie. They scalp him, which is always, whenever I see that in movies, it's always upsetting. Just the scalping of it. But that's the least of the problems.
Scalping, because they also took the top of his head off.
Yes.
You saw his brain.
I don't know if that was his brain or if it was just a skull, but it was something.
It was the full, I swear to you, I thought it was the brain. It reminded me of that Raiders when they eat the monkey brain. Like, they're going to go in with a spoon. Bye.
Can we talk about how inappropriate that is, by the way? Temple of Doom takes place in India. India has like delicious cuisine. You can go get Indian food right now. American version of Indian food. I defy you to walk into Tandoori and say, do you have any chilled monkey brain? I saw a documentary. Or how about just bugs? Or how about snakes? They have them.
Or how about if they're vegetarians because they're Hindu?
Right. Not in Temple of Doom. They're like, so all we're serving is chilled monkey brain, or I'm eating bugs, where I pick up a bug and just slurp it up.
A bug oyster, yeah.
Or I pick up snakes and just eat them live. And if you're like, you know what, that's not my cup of tea, I'll have soup. They give you a soup with just eyeballs floating in it. Again, this is India. This is India. This is not John Carter of Mars or something where they're serving some bizarre. Anyway, that's
maybe
not
it was. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was. So they scalp him. They take the thing they scalped him with, shove the scalp hair or whatever it is into the guy's mouth, jam the sharp bone thing into the guy's mouth. Okay? And you're like, this is already upsetting. Then they turn him upside down. One guy holds one leg, another guy holds the other leg, and they just chop him right down the middle. Chop, chop, and then literally rip him in half. Pow! I was like, whoa.
They split him.
They split him. They split him. And his guts fall out. So that was good. I want to reiterate that nothing in this movie had prepared you for this, for this moment. Okay?
I didn't think that was that shocking. They basically butchered him the same way that we do like cows and pigs.
So
except we're not holding them.
So you were all like,
the sheriff was little.
it was something. You saw some people get shot over the course of the movie, and I think you saw the body of the stable boy with like his guts out.
Brother, I've seen Fulci movies. So unless they were reaching down and then start drinking the entrails, I call this PG-13.
Jesus, you really are jaded. Your soul has absolutely been burned to a crisp. You're like, now I can see anything.
Thank you, Saint Fulci. See, it's too late.
You're gonna
save yourself.
You're gonna suggest we start watching the Saw movies and Hostel and Human Centipede.
I never made it through Hostel.
No,
although I've stayed at hostels.
And it's just like
maybe
that.
Maybe because I haven't been in the Eastern Bloc hostels. Maybe that's the next trip.
That's it. That's it. Good times to have by all. Any other thing you want to mention about this before we go behind the scenes?
No, I mean, enjoyed it.
It was good. It was good. So it's a question mark whether it's actually could be considered a horror movie. And I do not disagree with that. I think it's a question. Because in my mind, when they get there and they're locked up in the caves with the starving men, it takes a serious turn. But you're right. It's like the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and then I kind of, we had the debate about what is a horror movie.
Yep.
And a horror movie is a movie that's made to scare you.
Yep.
I don't feel that's this case. It was shocking, but
no, I can see that.
I found it very upsetting to watch Dustin Hoffman hanging by hooks in Little Big Man. Was that a horror?
Yes. I think we'd all, just his performance. Let's go behind the scenes, shall we?
Let's
see. Matthew Fox has said that he enjoyed making this movie more than any other film and has always wanted to be in a Western.
All right.
So there you go. Shot in 21 days. That's important.
Wow.
The cave set in the last act of the movie was the same cave used in Iron Man, where Tony Stark is held captive and constructs the first Iron Man suit. There you go.
I guess I didn't see that.
Jim Broadbent replaced original cast member Richard Jenkins for a few months. When the project was delayed, Jenkins was then recast in his role. So...
Oh, I like Mr. Broadbent.
I do as well, but I thought Jenkins was dynamite in this.
Yeah,
I thought he was so good.
Yeah,
which is he would constantly say
everybody was great, everybody was perfect, even the smallest role. It's nice. It's a small cast.
Yes,
and everyone was great.
I agree. When the movie was officially announced in October 2012. Peter Sarsgaard and Jennifer Carpenter were set to play the O'Dwyers, while Timothy Olyphant was going to play John Bruder.
Well, because he's totally Timothy Olyphant.
Yes, it is. You could see that. And I like Timothy Olyphant, no question.
I mean, but it is totally his character from Deadwood.
Mm-hmm. The burial ground of the troglodytes is an obvious homage to the Indian burial ground from Pet Sematary. Boom.
Oh.
This is the second David Arquette Western involving cannibalism. Do you know what the first one is?
I Spit on Your Grave.
Correct. No, it's the first one was called Ravenous. Do you remember Ravenous?
Oh, I haven't seen that. I think I've heard of that though.
I'm trying to remember who's in it. It is the Full Monty. What's his name? Oh crap!
I don't know.
Anyway, it's Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle. That's it. That's Ravenous. And a bunch of other actors.
Guy Pearce was in the Full Monty.
He was, absolutely. Before choosing Southern California, which is where they shot this, they considered the possibility of New Mexico and Utah. There you go.
All right. That's nice. That's interesting.
Special thanks, Jim Henson. Weird.
Porqué.
I don't know. These are good questions. Oh, good Lord. I think that's about it.
You got nothing to say about the Trogs?
Partly inspired by H. Rider Haggard's Lost Race Tales and The Virginian. How about that?
Lost Race Tales?
H. Rider Haggard did all those Alan Quatermain stories of like Africa. Yeah. King Solomon's Mines, things like that, which I enjoy reading actually. So there you go.
I've never read any of that nonsense.
Let's talk about the cast and crew, shall we?
Yes.
S. Craig Zoller, I'm sure I'm messing up his name, was the writer and director. You know him from such things as Bone Tomahawk, Dragged Across Concrete in 2018.
Ooh, that seems unpleasant.
Brawl in Cell Block 99 in 2017. And something called Hug Chicken Penny. Does that mean anything to you?
Not at all.
Although he did write Puppet Master: The Littlest Reich in 2018. How about that?
Dude, there's more Puppet Masters?
One of your favorites.
Oh my God. The Littlest Reich? Does that mean it's the little Nazi? Maybe
Yes.
he's got a little Nazi wife puppet and little Nazi Hitler Youth?
Yes. Absolutely. Cast. Kurt Russell played Sheriff Hunt. You know him from such things as Escape from New York, The Hateful Eight, The Thing, Escape from LA, and 1,000 other things.
Of course, he's dynamite. He's wonderful. I'm always in for Kurt Russell.
100%. I was shocked when our sister Tara told us that her favorite Tarantino movie was The Hateful Eight.
Which to me is the longest, most boring one I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know if I agree with that, but it is interesting.
Okay, which one is to you in your mind is the longest, most boring one?
Whenever anybody asks me what is the Tarantino movie you hate or like the least, it is definitely Death Proof, which you haven't even seen. I venture.
No, Death Proof doesn't count.
Why not?
It's like a short.
No, it's not.
It's like a short.
No, it's not.
It's half of that stupid Grindhouse movie.
It is, but each one is feature length. They're both about 2 hours long. Which makes it more upsetting when you're having fun watching Planet Terror and then you have 2 more hours to spend watching Death Proof afterwards, which stars Kurt Russell, by the way. So there you go.
Sad.
Patrick Wilson played Arthur, who is the cowboy.
He's always good, too.
Always good. He played Raoul in 2004's Phantom of the Opera.
I missed that.
We always talk about this. It was Phantom of the Opera.
No one is whiter than Patrick Wilson.
Correct. Well, it takes place in France.
How is he Yeah, Raoul's a very popular French name.
I didn't write it, okay? But he was Raoul, and Gerard Butler was the Phantom in 2004.
What the hell?
Yes.
Get out of here.
Before either of them were famous, and Emmy Rossum, who went on to have success on that show, Shameless, on HBO, played Christine Daae. So,
all right.
Good stuff. He was also in Hard Candy in 2005, which we reviewed on this show.
Yes.
He was in Insidious in 2010, which we reviewed on this show.
Absolutely.
And
we're Patrick Wilson fans.
all the Conjuring movies.
All the Conjuring. The Conjuring are better than the Insidious.
100%. 100%. He was also in 2009's Watchmen, the comic book adaptation, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I'm shocked. Shocked, I say. Matthew Fox played Brooder. You know him from such things as Bone Tomahawk in 2015. He was Racer X in 2008's Speed Racer.
Racer X.
That's right. He was in 119 episodes as Dr. Jack Shepard in Lost, 2004 to 2010. So not that long ago. And he was in Smoking Aces in 2006, which I kind of enjoy.
Also did not see that, but I've heard of it at least.
It's kind of a fun-ish, Tarantino-ish kind of movie. Richard Jenkins played Chicory, the backup deputy.
What a great name.
He was in 2017's Shape of Water.
God. I hate that movie so much.
He was in 2007's The Visitor. He was in 2008's Step Brothers. He played the father.
I did see that.
2008's Burn After Reading. He's been...
I think I saw that.
Ton of stuff. He was in Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
I love him so. Let's see.
I love you so much.
I love you. Anybody else you want to know? Sean Young, Michael
Paré. I want to know about the troglodytes. Who played lead buff troglodyte?
There's an actor playing the character Gizzard. Is that one of the troglodytes?
I think that's the drunk piano player.
No, the drunk piano player is called Pianist, and he is the actor who played the evil principal in Back to the Future. And he was also the guy in Top Gun. He says, Maverick, your ego's right and checks your body can't cash. He's been in a ton of stuff, and he's got 2 lines in this movie. There's a lot of actors who you've seen in a million things who have 3 lines in this movie.
Just to be in it.
It's pretty amazing.
All right, tell me about Gizzard.
Maestro Harrell played Gizzard. You know him from The Wire. He played Randy Wagstaff for 14 episodes. He was in 2 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. Excuse me. He did the soundtrack for Teen Titans Go to the movies. And
isn't that the guy who got ripped up in the shed?
I don't know. I think that was what the hell was his name? Buford. Buford was a different actor who got killed in the shed. I don't know who Gizzard is. It's possible there's another one. Maybe, because that's the thing. If the troglodytes are just stuntmen, they're not going to be here. They'd be in a different thing because they don't have lines. So, do you want to know about anybody else? Sean Young, Michael Paré, Sid Haig,
Blade Runner,
David Arquette,
Sid Haig, Spider Baby. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Let's look at the rating, shall we? Let's see. Bone Tomahawk currently has 91% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Boom.
Oh, you're right. It's a pipe-like instrument implanted in their windpipes.
I told you. Do you know what the audience gave Bone Tomahawk?
What?
You're supposed to guess.
Oh, okay. Wait, the audience?
Yes.
Said it was 89.
74. Boom!
I think because the audience thought they were walking into a horror movie, and instead they walked into a Western.
And again, the long journey, I could see somebody being less than thrilled with that, but I enjoyed every moment.
I agree.
Let's see. Top critics. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian says, cult status could beckon for this well-made, macabre, and violent Western horror from cinematographer turned director S. Craig Zoller. 4 out of 5. Very good. Don't disagree.
So far, I've only been able to find the lady who played a pregnant troglodyte A. Her name was Susie Castaneda.
She's very talented. Leonard Maltin from LeonardMaltin.com says, it's never a bad time for a good Western, and Bone Tomahawk is a good Western.
I agree. I think it's really good.
Rex Reed of The Observer says, it's an uneasy mixture of bizarre character development, arty dialogue laced with black humor, and gruesome horror flick. 2.5 out of 4. I don't know if that's good, bad, or other. Very upsetting. And what is your rating for Bone
Dude,
Tomahawk?
I found all the troglodytes or IMDb.
Okay.
There's Misshapen Troglodyte, David Midthunder, Wolf Skull, his name is Ra Liba, Boar Tusk is Gino Segre, Eagle Skull is Alex Muraz, Sentinel, Robert Allen Mukes, and it goes on. Noseless Troglodyte, Serrated Tomahawk, Sharp Teeth, Quiet Stalker, and they range from like all different ethnic types too.
That's good.
How about that?
How about
How
that
dare you,
indeed?
sir. I'm
Your
still looking for chopped up pregnant. Yeah, here's Mirren Hassler, pregnant troglodyte B. Both the troglodyte ladies are quite thin. It seems like you probably could have hired fatter ladies for that.
I don't think you say, well,
I'm troglodyte A, and my sister is troglodyte B.
we're looking for pregnant women or just fat women, if that will work.
That have no arms or legs and sticks in their eyes.
Sweet
Preferably.
Jesus. Preferably. Bring your own sticks. What is your rating for Bone Tomahawk, for God's sakes?
Bone Tomahawk is going to give me 90 times I should have been married to Kurt Russell, and I didn't, out of 100.
I thought you were going to say, I have a boner tomahawk for Bone Tomahawk.
I'll let you save that. I'm
So-
giving it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. It's definitely, I would say, 4 out of 5 for Bone Tomahawk. I think it's good. It's rewatchable. Although that moment, it did not bother Aaron at all. It bothered me.
Non-boost.
Even the second and third viewing, I was like, what the even when I knew it was coming, I'm like, oh my God. But I would literally, if you can, and it's like the last 10 minutes of the movie, they drop that hammer on you. So I like it.
I was like, how are they getting out of this shit?
And not all of them did. That's for sure. Anywho,
No.
any last thoughts on Bone Tomahawk?
I think this is why Patrick Wilson and his wife were later able to see ghosts and
Yes, I think that's why.
Save the day.
Same
They're immortal
character.
now. Same character.
Sweet. Well, ironically, we didn't even mention her. The woman who plays his wife is the only one who I don't recognize and have never seen in anything. I mean,
and she was solid.
She was really good. She was really good. I could have mentioned her, but I did not. So very upsetting. She had a poignant moment where they're like, "Oh, Lily Simmons." There's a moment where they're like, "It's okay. We left a trail for your husband to find us," and she's like, "Why? You mean my husband with the broken leg dragging himself up here? You've left him a path to find his way here? You fools."
Oh, she's been in a ton of stuff.
Anything you recognize?
True Detective, Bray Donovan, Westworld, Gotham, The Purge. And you did hear that Trump is thinking maybe we should have a purge day.
I did hear that.
So there we go. We're all prepared. So take what we learned from our podcast for when the purge comes.
I need to take some notes. So thank you very much. Go to our page across social media, frankly. We're on Facebook. We're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You can watch us on YouTube if that's more your fancy, for goodness sakes. Don't forget to email us at the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm messing up the name.
Never dies, wouldn't die.
The
can't
podcast
die,
that wouldn't die at Gmail.
Whoop, whoop.
You can also listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So don't forget to like, share, rate, and review. Won't you?
Won't you please?
Aaron, what is your social media situation?
I am on the gram. I am the cult of Aaron. Join the cult.
Beautiful. we normally like to include questions, comments from our friends across the interwebs. Aaron, do you have any that you'd like to share off the top of your head?
Yes, we've had a request to do It's Alive 3 Island of Alive from our good friend. So we need to put that on the books.
Add it to the list. No question. Get it in the calendar.
Get it on the calendar. The other thing is now I have to go to TikTok, you son of a bitch. Ooh, Dave Bautista. You see that TikTok knows me, so all of a sudden it's Dave Bautista. I don't know. People liked our stuff on TikTok. How's that?
Sounds perfect.
Granny Fanny Nestle called in. Said, keep up the good work.
That's the only kind of work we keep up. No question. So, next week, we are doing the horror classic, John Carpenter's Christine, which I always found an interesting way to describe the Stephen King movie. John Carpenter's Christine. Starring...
that guy from that thing.
And there's a few of those guys from that thing in this one.
Yes.
So check that out. To watch Christine, you will have to go to Fubo, Peacock, AMC Plus, Criterion Collection. Ooh, Tubi with ads.
Hey!
Ooh.
Ads. That gives you time to flip over to the ticker talker for a little while.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about that on our show. We're also going to be going on the Uncut Gems podcast to talk a little more about Christine. So you have that
of course
for double dipping. So send in any of your favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, and questions, and we may talk about them on the show. So thank you very much, and be well.
Ta-ta. TTFN.